welcome to FCLE Seminar, a Florida Civic Literacy Exam podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto, and today we're joined by Dr. Jason Ampel, founder of Learning Liaisons, an online and in-person tech prep option. How cool is that? Dr. A is a former middle and high school teacher with a decade of classroom experience in Central Florida, spent 10 years as a professor of education at the University of Central Florida, and today I'm happy to have him as the first guest on FCLE Seminar to discuss how to get your Civic on. Thanks for coming to the show today, Dr. A.
Right. Thanks for having me, Mercedes. I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
I'm really excited. Dr. A, let's start by diving into the Florida Civic Literacy
hmm
Exam. Can you give our listeners a quick overview? What is that test about?
Yeah. So funny is I had no idea about the FCLE until I met somebody at a conference and her name was Mercedes. That's what a coincidence. And, and then I started researching. So for everybody listening, that you got two groups of people that this potentially affect. You have your high school students, specifically your seniors, which is about 170,000 of them every year in the state of Florida. And then you also have your other group, which is your college student. Maybe you're a high school student who stumbled on this. Maybe you're a college student who stumbled on this. But more importantly, if you're a parent listening to this is very important stuff. So you have your high school seniors as your bigger demographic, and then you have your college students. So basically, in 2021, the governor passed a law where it's Florida Civic Literacy Exam. So if you're a high school senior and you want to go to any college or university in the state of Florida, you should pass this exam in high school. I use the word should because it's not required to graduate high school. However, if your plan is to go to a college anywhere in the state of Florida, if you do not pass it in high school, or if you're in an AP course and some other ways around it getting certain scores on your exams, it's going to be on your college audit when you go to any university, and you have to not only pass it, but some institutions require you to take an entry level civics course. So, what does that mean? That means extra time and extra money out of your or your family's pocket, depending on who's paying for your education. And plus, it's going to compound that pressure. So in high school, it's like, oh, yeah, it's not a serious exam. I don't need to pass it in high school. I'm just, some people take it seriously, some people don't. But now when you're in college and you're having fun and you're learning and you're experiencing new things and extracurricular activities and clubs and whatever you're doing on your next level of education, you're going to have this thing dangling over your head and it ain't going to go anywhere, and you're not going to be able to graduate until you pass that exam. So it's basically the same exam, but it's going to be a little bit harder when you get to college to pass it. So that's kind of the two big demographics of people. So just want to reiterate, you don't need high school students don't need to pass it to graduate. However, it's probably the smarter idea to take it seriously in high school to get it over with. So that's one less barrier you have to overcome when you're in college. So I mean, the exam is covers it's four different sections. Congress and government and Supreme Court cases, all that kind of stuff that you learn in high school. So I always tell people in some of the intro videos in the course, I taught social studies for 10 years, 5 years in middle school, 5 years in high school. So I like to be honest with people when I talk to them, especially when I talk to school leaders about this or college professors. Let's be honest, not everybody loves social studies. I was in the classroom. Some people really enjoy it, but most of them just do it because they have to do it. So now you have an exam that someone has to pass if they want to go to college in Florida, and it's something that they're probably not interested in. And there's so much content on this exam. So I've done a lot of research before I started building this platform, which I'm sure we'll talk about during this session. But one of the big things I got from social studies teachers and social studies leaders at districts is that, one, the stuff that they teach in their course that the kids have to take it in high school is not everything on the exam, and they don't know a lot about the content on it. So there's a lot of stuff on this exam that people either is not interesting to them or just don't even remember, didn't pay attention in social studies class. So imagine if you're in college and you're out of high school, past all the social studies requirements you had to do. Now you're just floating around there having to take this civics exam on stuff that's really not interested to you, have nothing to do with your goals in college. So that's basically what the exam is. And I don't know if you want to talk about now some of the data and the pass rates and stuff like that, but I'm sure we'll get to that in our conversation.
That is that is so well said. And how this ended up as a project for me also is the lady that I work with. She had to take the exam, and was a transfer in from another state.
Hmm.
Hopefully, I'm getting this right.
Yeah.
And it was like right at the end of her graduation period. She was like, "Wait, what do you mean I have to pass the Florida Civic Literacy Exam?" And
Yeah, and one thing you did mention that I didn't talk about in my two different groups, which you just hit on, is if you're coming from out of state to a Florida university, you still have to pass this. That's something I didn't mention that you just hit on. So that's a good point also. So regardless if you are born and raised in Florida or you've been in high school in Florida, if you're coming from another state or anywhere in the world to a lovely Florida university, you still have to pass this exam. So it's not Florida history or Florida government, it's United States government.
you you will know about the amendments. Yes, let's talk about the nuts and bolts. Pass score. What's required to pass?
It's, you only need a 60% to pass this exam. I'll say that again, 660. So for you students out there, 0 to 100 on a test, a 60. That's a D, right? So so I'm not saying it like,
Yeah.
this is easy to pass because it's not, right? You got 80 questions. It's a long exam. You need 60% correct. So the $1 million question is, why is the pass rates so low? So for example, like I said it before, that there's about approximately 170,000 high school seniors that take this exam. Now, I've talked to a lot of school leaders, especially people in social studies departments, as I was building this, and I always had a series of questions I was asking them. And one of them is, in your experience, because they've only been doing this for a couple of years, mind you, they started in 2021. Your experience, if you had a guesstimate, and you can't give me an exact number, what percentage of your high school seniors do you actually think take this exam seriously? And they'll just come in there and just Christmas tree, and every person I spoke to is about 50%. So I was expecting a lot lower than that. I was going to think 25%, 30, no, about 50%. And that's been a consistent number. Even I don't know if you could put links in the podcast description or anything, but Florida is really good about posting data. And I was very surprised on how up to date it is. So they have the 2023-2024 school year data, not only for school districts, but universities right on the FCLE page. Their Excel sheets you could download. So on average, it's about 49% is the pass rate out of 170,000 high school seniors, right? And those range from 43%, and everything is lined by school district. You could go find your school district and see exactly how many people take it. Now, mind you, not everybody takes it seriously, but still, that's a really horrific number. And we can talk later about, partnerships and some of the feedback I'm getting. But on the university level, the pass rates are higher. I think the lowest one is like in the low 70s. And mind you, it does list all of the universities too by name and the number of students that take it. And the highest, I think UCF, go Knights. Got to always say that when I say that. My alma mater there, worked there, and 2 degrees from there. I think it's about 95%.
Oh,
But it just depends. So it ranges. Now, is that first attempt pass rate? I bet every dollar I have that it's not. They just, how many people get through it and pass it doesn't matter how many times that they take it. So it does not say first attempt pass rate. So it is an issue at the college level, but not as big as an issue as at the high school level. But you have to understand, like I've been saying, is one's required at the college. High school is not required to graduate. So that definitely plays into that pass rate number. But one of the things I talk about with the school districts when we do meetings is we use the term college ready. Are your high school students college ready? Well, what do you mean? It's a civics exam. Well, meaning you got to be ready to go to college, because if you don't pass this exam, it's on your audit. So being ready to walk in that door with the barriers already knocked down that you need to before you start your coursework is very important. And some of the feedback I'm getting from the school districts, we actually have a charter school that's piloting it also in Brevard County. And they said that they pitched to their parents and their school that they are getting kids ready for college. So that's what drew their attention to that, to pilot it, because that's the push. So is that the push for all high schools? I would assume so, but do they really push it verbally and say it out loud and make sure that their students are doing everything that they need to be ready for college? Well, with respect to this exam, I would say no because of the pass rates, but that also has to do because it's not tied to their school grade. I mean, in every conversation so far with school districts, we have our set of questions that we ask and talk about, not just for that school district specifically, but just in general. And that's obviously one of the top things they say is they want people to do better, but it's not one of those have to pass to graduate exams. But I'm hearing from some of these leaders that down the road, sometime soon, there's going to be a little more weight on these civic exams.
That's so interesting to me because the college readiness angle makes sense because it's one more thing you could do in high school that that for maybe your for students who are looking at that path
Hmm.
that readies them for going to college in Florida, and takes care of that criteria. You really nailed it. And since we're discussing curriculum, you've set up a curriculum to help students like tackle this test. Can you walk us through what that looks like and why has it been so successful?
So, so I've learned over the years through my first test prep platform, the Learning Liaisons, that it's not about memorizing content. One of the reasons why I started the Learning Liaisons is when I was teaching at UCF. I taught all kinds of classes, undergrad, graduate, doctoral classes, and I always remember in my undergrad classes, and this was before the Learning Liaisons, is I'd walk in and you'd be a group of students every week in the back of the room before class started, and they had their black and yellow, those Cliff Notes books. Remember those Cliff Notes books? And they had their stack of index cards, and they're all yelling and getting angry, and they're quizzing each other. And I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're trying to memorize. We keep failing the Florida. It was the general knowledge test is what they were studying for, and this is so stupid. I can't do this. Blah blah blah." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I was a horrible test taker growing up, right? That's one of the reasons why I pushed myself into grad school and doc program and taught myself and uh, learned learn how to do things the right way. So that's one of the reasons why I started the Learning Liaisons is seeing those students struggling at UCF on the Florida exams. But I learned real quick is that, it's I always tell people it's not the memorization of information, right? It's the application of knowledge, right? So if you're going out there and the same rules apply for any exam, but we're talking about high stakes exams here, like a civic exam or a teacher certification exam. Once you go down the road of trying to make a bunch of flashcards and memorize terms and this and that, you're not going to do well on these exams. This is not like studying for your social studies exam from your teacher in high school or studying for math exam where they give you practice questions and you play a review game and everything you do in class and everything they give you, guess what? It's on the test, right? On one way or another, and you do really good if you study and put in the time, right? But these exams, like the FCLE exam, so much content. So if you go down the road of trying to memorize stuff, you're not going to do well and you're going to stress yourself out to no end and have to take this exam multiple times. So what I've learned is there are three key themes that I run through the curriculum, whether it's certification or the FCLE platform, right? And I'll talk about these real quick, right? It's knowledge, strategy, and confidence, right? So knowledge is knowing your opponent. I always use analogies like sports. Whenever I have the opportunity now to travel around the country and do talks for HR directors for certification and deans and professors. And in my experience, when I was telling you, I equate this with sports analogies. Think about it. You don't have to be a sports fan or play sports in school. If you're a college student listening to this or a high school student or even a parent listening, you don't have to be a sports fan to understand this or play sports. But, think about two teams. Think about basketball or softball or baseball or football, right? If two teams are playing each other, what do they do the week or two before their big game? They study their opponent. They understand what plays they run, their tendencies, all that kind of stuff. Whatever sport you want to insert in that, right? So you have to look at your exam, and this does not have to just do with the civic exam. It's just any exam. Do you know your opponent, right? Do you know how many questions you need to get right? Do you know how they score you? Do you know what concepts are going to be on your exam? If it's a writing test, like for example, if it's one of the certification exams and you have to write an essay, a constructive response, do you know how the state grades you? In my experience of doing this for 10 years every day, and I love what I do, is I've looked at so many classroom teachers and college students right in the face in live presentations or online, but predominantly when I built the Learning Liaisons is face to face around the state of Florida. I'd always ask them, Did you know how they were grading your essay? And they failed. No. Well, why'd you take it? Well, I just had to get it over with. I want to see what it looked like, right? So that's the feedback that I've got, and I'm sure you've heard that before in your experience helping students with the Florida certification exam. So knowledge, knowing your opponent, because if you don't know your opponent, you're more likely to get knocked out, right? Meaning failing the exam and staring at questions for 5 minutes on the screen and the sweat bead coming down from the side of your head, stressing, like thinking about my life choices and what am I doing here right now, right? We could minimize that anxiety by understanding our opponent. So that's the knowledge part. Next is strategy, right? Having proven strategies on how to lower anxiety, how to tackle questions, right? How to pass the exam. It might sound silly, right? But for you students out there, if your method is reading a question over and over again and whittling down the answer to hopefully two or three and picking your favorite letter and moving on, you're going to be one of those people that are going to keep failing the exam. So there are ways to lower anxiety level, right? Marking questions, analyzing how they're wording the questions that will lower anxiety and boost your score tremendously. Mind you, you don't have to know all the content. The passing score is very low. You got to pass the exam. Now, does that mean to dumb yourself down and not think of yourself as a smart person because the score is only 60 you need? Of course not. But you got to be strategic in how you're studying and how your strategy going into that game plan. So you only have to take it one time, right? It's a pass or fail test, period, right? And then the last part is confidence. So when you know about the exam, you got a strategy, you understand this is a performance, you're using the right resources to study, you're studying the right way. All that stuff is going to build on your confidence level and empower you to know that you're ready to go take this exam. So kind of what I do, that's the three pillars that run through any curriculum I develop. That's the key. The moment you go down the route of I've got to memorize everything on this test because I got to pass this thing, you're hurting yourself more. You got to be strategic. You got to know it's a performance and you got to study the right way. So that knowledge, strategy, and confidence. And one of the big things that I'm bringing into this also that I've done with other prep platforms is the whole idea of social learning and community, right? So I've heard so many times over the years with teacher certification from teachers, whether it's college students or classroom teachers, I've heard this test is so hard. I've got nobody to help me. I'm so stupid. I'm probably the only one that's failing this thing. This is ridiculous. I've heard it so many times, but there's so many people out there that are struggling with passing their exams, whether it's the FCLE or a teacher certification exam. And it's not because no one is dumb. You just have to understand how to prep the right way, right? So one of the things that I did with the certification aspect is I have Facebook groups. So yes, Facebook groups are people that study and come in and hopefully they'll sign up to the platform and stuff. But they're also people just sharing information, giving each other support. So whether you're paying or coming in from one of the partnerships, you're in a private, safe zone group where all the instructors are at. So whether it's me or my math instructor, social studies, SPED, anybody, all the people that are featured in the certification courses are on that in that group so you can ask them questions if you don't understand something. So the same thing I'm doing with FCLE is we have a Facebook group, and you don't have to be a paying customer to be in. Anybody can join it. We just started it a month ago. I think it's about at this date. I think there's only about 65 or 70 people in there because we're just starting this right now. It's literally I just launched it and opened it, probably going on 5 or 6 weeks now. But that's a big part of people knowing that they're not alone because that's the worst feeling if you fail a test and you think I'm not smart, I can't do this, it's never going to happen. Well, knowing that you're not the only one that's struggling with it and there are ways to pass it kind of helps build that confidence from not just the instructor or the materials, but everybody else that's in the same position as you are.
Love your work, and I think it's brilliant, especially the community style learning, the safe space community style learning towards the goal of understanding. Because I did notice with the practice questions on the FCLE and even on some of the other tests we both studied is their application
Mhm.
scenario questions. So if you can't link
Yeah.
the application of the First Amendment to a First Amendment style scenario, then
Hmm.
memorization of Marbury versus Madison is not going to help you. And so
Mhm.
that is excellent work. Okay, I
My vision, well, we just started. So right now I was in the process of getting some school districts and universities to pilot it. So when I say pilot, like for free, so I'm giving up to 100 free access points for their school districts, and I give them a landing page and share it with the easy directions and stuff. So I've got Martin County Public Schools is currently piloting it. We have Florida State College at Jacksonville, St. Petersburg College, Green Apple Schools, which is a charter school. I learned about that. Didn't even know about that. That's in Brevard County. We have meetings set up. We've met with Miami-Dade. I have meetings set up after spring break for Broward County, and some other districts. Let's get this straight that there is no paid service or platform out there that has all of the prep that a high school student or college needs in one place for the Florida Civic Literacy Exam. So I'm all about helping and solving problems. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Yes, this is a business. Yes, it's obviously in existence to eventually make money. But right now, out of the gate, I wanted to give it away for free to school districts and university to pilot, to get feedback and reflect just as an educator, see what's good and what's bad. I've got nothing but amazing comments so far. I even gotten people that took the test and then learned about this, and I put them in the program and literally writing me, "Oh my God, this is just like the test. I wish I knew about this," right? I took it 3 times. So it's the same feedback that I'm hearing now. And the comments that I see from college students, especially complaining about how nothing on the practice tests on the DOE site look like the exam. Uh, I don't know. It's so much info, but here there's nothing out there, and all I hear is struggles. That's all I hear from people. So Get Your Civics On is the company name, and then I created a DBA for Florida Civics Prep. I think it's a little fun, a little catchy. Yes, I am a realist. I'm transparent. I know the vast majority of people do not enjoy civics or do not enjoy social studies. Let's be honest. This is a check mark for people, and that's fine because this is life. So why not make it engaging? Why not make it fun? So that's the curriculum, the knowledge, strategy, and confidence. That's the pillars that I construct the course. And we'll put a link in the description. And if people want to check it out, there's a free version on there that has one of the 4 competencies on there. There's also a free practice test on the website that you can sign up for to check your civics knowledge. And I know we have more questions to go through, but the one thing I want to stress about this is that, and this is not necessarily a good thing, but we can change it, is that parents don't know about this test. If you're listening and I've heard this from school leaders that I met with so far, district leaders, assistant superintendents, assessment leaders, social studies coordinators for the district. They know it's important. The pass rates are embarrassing. However, they also know, like I said at the beginning, it's not tied to the school grade, right? But one of the big things that they express is that the parents, and because that's not such a high priority, right? The parents don't know about it. So I spoke to, before I start, and I know this is not a big sample size, but before I started building this, I spoke to 3 parents that have kids in college because I posted online. Well, this is like a long time ago. If anyone has any high school kids in high school or college, blah, 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 just wanted to, didn't even say what it was. And then I messaged them, 3 of them said, "Oh my God, that's why my daughter has to take it in college right now because they didn't pass it and they didn't even know that their kid was taking it." So I'm assuming, and I know we're not supposed to assume, right? It's not really advertised to parents because of that fact. But if I was a high school parent and my kid's goal was to go to college in Florida, and my kid was given this exam and no one told me, and I can't say that they don't 100%. Don't think when you're hearing this that I'm telling you they don't, because I don't know. I'm assuming based on my conversation so far is there's not real a lot of advertisement from the teachers or the school district that their kid is taking this exam. Maybe it's a letter that goes home. Maybe they don't read it, whatever. But if I was a parent and my kid was in high school and they had to pass this to go to college and I knew it would cost me more money because I had to take an extra civics class in college or have to go through that stress so they could just take care of it with a little studying in high school, I would be mad. The curriculum, I know it's successful if people do it. That's the key. You got to put in the work. So our FCLE platform is not just a bunch of practice tests, because there are a lot of test prep companies out there, especially in my current space for teacher certification, where we have a lot of institutions and school districts that are now coming to buy our prep because a lot of our competitors, all they are basically are practice tests. And when you do a bunch of diagnostic practice tests and exams, you're never going to see the same questions on the real test. It gives you a false sense of reality, because I can't tell you many times, oh, I took a practice test, I got a 90 on it, I'm ready to take the exam, but they go take it and they get upset when they fail. Like, nothing that was on my practice test looked anything like the exam. Nothing I studied was on there. It's on there. It's just portrayed in different ways that's not going to be replicated. You're not going to see the same exact questions in a study guide or an online program. You got to have strategy, and you got to understand your opponent and know those major concepts. So when I designed the FCLE platform with Andy Wade, my social studies teacher, we took all 4 competencies from the Board of Governors and the Department of Education page for Florida, and went line by line in each of those competencies and created, I think we got about 1,300 or so practice questions in a bank that encompass all 4 competencies. But when we design this, it's like high school students, predominantly it's going to be high school students, but college students also. Our video lessons are like 5 to 7 minutes long. They're broken down into little chunks, but we align everything with the Florida Department of Education. So for example, competency 1, the FCLE, we got about 6 or 7 little, mini lesson videos with Andy Wade on camera, walking through the content, discussing things, and people can read it on the screen and download all the slides and work together and take notes with Andy as he's teaching the content. But how I structure these courses is, I'll give you a quick rundown. Obviously we've got the first section, we have the instructions and stuff, but we invite them to our private FCLE group where they can ask myself and Andy questions. But in the first part, I created a study plan for students. So if you're a person that's unorganized like myself and all over their studying, I created a 4-week study plan PDF that aligns with this exam, how to do, when to do it. Yeah, you could stretch it out or make it shorter if you want, but I wanted to give students, especially high school students, a tangible document they can use to keep themselves organized, and I walk them through it on video. But then when we go through the course is segmented the exactly same way. We go through comps 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have a couple of practice tests at the end. But in each of the competencies, what we do is at the beginning, so competency 1 is an example. At the beginning, I give them a pre-quiz. This is not a diagnostic test. It's just a pre-quiz on competency 1 content. It's a timed 30-minute quiz, about 25 questions, and they go through it. After that quiz, it obviously auto grades it for them. After the quiz, Andy comes in and he does the little mini lessons on all the different concepts in competency 1. After those mini lessons, about 5 to 7 minutes each, or maybe like 5 to 7 of those videos, then we come back and Andy goes through on video the pre-quiz, and he works through every question, showing them not only what the right answer is, but how you get to it and why the other ones are incorrect, right? Then after that, I personally designed some interactive flashcards that are embedded in the course, all the concepts for Comp 1, just to hit those again with little pictures on it, everything on there you can use right in the course. And then after those flashcards, we have a couple little bonus quizzes, which pull from the bank of questions just to kind of that post-test. So we got the pre-test and the post-test, and that's all Comp 1. And we repeat that process for all 4 competencies, and then we have a couple of practice tests. So in its entirety, this might sound like a lot when I say it, but it's really not when you work through it, because this is an engaging video course with actually real people that can support you in this private group. The total runtime is about 19 hours. That includes the practice test. The actual exam is questions. So your quizzes and your flashcards and your videos. So 19 hours. Now, when you complete the curriculum in order and do everything, there's a certificate of completion at the end. Maybe some school districts, want to use that, or institutions especially, to prove that they completed some kind of preparation, and it'll customize that certificate with your name and other identifying information just for you at the end. So if you're a school leader out there, whether you're in the public school or university leader, We track all the data. We could provide reporting for you, run watch time and assessments and what they're doing and how long they spent. I mean, it's just a matter of people actually doing the work. And at the end of the day, putting in 19 hours of total time spread over a month, maybe, there's not a lot of time to get college ready for my high school students out there, not have to worry about it. And for my college students out there, getting this off your audit so you don't have to worry about it.
Just for review, we talked a little bit about the Florida Civic Literacy Exam, why it's necessary, past scores, and what parents know and don't know. We also hit up on what educators are saying, feedback from teachers and school leaders, and how you created your curriculum to be successful so students can be successful, and a little bit about your three pillars for building confidence and success.
Mhm.
Um, and then your vision going forward. I I would like to wrap it up with what are some final thoughts for our listeners, and where can school leaders and students find you on social media, or like how do we sign up for FCLE prep?
So I can make it real easy. I know if you're a college student and a high school student, if you hear me say Facebook, you're probably going to laugh and roll your eyes. But if you go to Facebook and search FCLE, there's nothing really out there. You'll find our group. So you'll find that that's the first place you can go. It's an easy search, FCLE. So if you put Florida Civics Prep in Facebook or Instagram, you will find us. So there's consistent content going out, practice questions, engaging content. But if you go to the website, and I'm sure we could put the link in the description of this podcast, flcivicsprep.com. So flcivicsprep.com. If you go to the website, so if you're a student, you'll see literally right there when the page loads, there's a big button to sign up, but right next to it is try for free. And there's a pilot version that has Comp 1. So it's the same exact course as the full version. We just only have the first section in Comp 1 of the exam on there so you can see what the look and feel of it. You can do that. There's a big button on the top for a free practice test. It's a 40 question practice. It's not a full one, but it's pulling from our bank so you can get an idea of what the questions look like and what to expect on the exam. But definitely check out the website. People are just finding it already.
Yeah.
If you're a student listening to this and you want it for free, it's very easy. Go to the website, flcivics.com. Go to the top of the website. There's a big button that says pilot. Take that link and share it with your school leader. If you're a high school student, share it with your social studies teacher, share it with your principal, send it to the district office. If you're a college student, send it to your advisor or your assessment department, whoever offers that prep. Because I know institutions have some sort of workshops and stuff, but do that and share that. That's the only way this is going to get out. But if you want to sign up for it on your own, it's real easy. You could study for this and pass it within a month. So I have two options to sign up. You can pay $20 a month as a subscription. That's literally probably 2 coffees at Starbucks a month. Uh, but you could sign up for a subscription and you can cancel whenever you want. You can just use it for a month, spend $20, pass your exam. Sometimes people need more. Or you can buy at one shot, one payment, no reoccurring fee. You could buy it for 1 year access for $125. So instead of $20 a month, you spend one time 125 and you get that for the whole year, and you're not going to get charged again. So I'm really excited about what's going on now. A lot of meetings set up, a lot of things already being introduced into the colleges and school districts via pilots. One of the schools, the charter school I'm talking to, I'm real impressed with how they run stuff. I've honestly never heard of them before until they contacted me, the Green Apple schools. They're actually having their juniors take this exam because that's the one I mentioned earlier in this session is they pitch themselves as getting kids college ready. So they're actually having juniors start doing it. So they make sure they get everybody passed by the time they graduate. So why not get your kids college ready?
This is excellent. So I want to shout out Andy Wade because he's an excellent teacher social studies. He is able to communicate civic literacy in a storytelling way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why it sticks, at least for me as a learner. So shout out to Andy Wade. Also, I'm in the larger picture. I want to thank you for what you're doing as an entrepreneur, American entrepreneur. We are seeing on the ground, a rise in civic interest. And I think that Florida is doing, nobody wants to take another test. So when this came out, it was like, oh no, another test. But when you look at the outcome of a student walking away with a little more knowledge about their country and the framework of the Constitution and how it applies uniquely here, then we're looking at some really neat citizens going forward. Yeah.
We all have our priorities. Maybe we like social studies, maybe we don't. But the basic knowledge of how the countries run, so it is important. Whatever country you live in, to understand a little bit about the history. But this is not really history of the United States. It's more of how the government works and the Supreme Court cases that make it what it is today.
And so I thank you, one,
Yes.
for the Get Your Civic On and for your contribution to uh, the Florida Teacher Certification Exam, helping teachers get in the classroom and passing those exams.
Mhm.
So thanks for coming on the show today to discuss the FCLE pilot, the FCLE Facebook group. If you're looking to pass the FCLE and then get your civics on with FCLE Prep, or visit this podcast, FCLE Seminar, and share what you've learned with us. We're on Spotify and YouTube, and we love hearing from you. That's it for today's Civic Literacy Exam Prep. Check out my buddy Dr. A and sign up for his stuff. I'm Mercedes Musto. I'll catch you next time. Until then, keep asking those big questions. And thanks for listening to the FCLE Seminar, a Florida Civic Literacy Exam podcast. So you